We're here with Congressman Jeb Hensarling, the chairman of the Financial Services Committee. Mr. Chairman, thank you for being here. Okay, so President has proposed a series of trade policies, and you don't agree with all of them.
Well, no, I don't. I'm very concerned about them. Number one, I give the president great credit for what he has done in bringing us historic tax relief, historic regulatory relief, kind of right-sizing regulation. I was very happy to go to the White House right before Memorial Day to see the president sign into law the Economic Growth and Regulatory Relief Act, which does a number on Dodd-Frank, to quote the president. But all of this, Kevin, all of this could be erased by a global trade war. In fact, I saw a report from Barclays that said that the tariffs imposed upon the EU and those on China, we could lose 90 basis points off of GDP, which is what many economists believe the tax relief gave us in the first place.
The president's heading to the G7 to Quebec on Friday. He's going to be meeting with global counterparts, as well as comes as the administration has said that they're considering withdrawing from NAFTA. Is that the right strategy, to withdraw from NAFTA?
Absolutely not. I mean, number one, not only as a member of Congress, but as a Texan. I can tell you in Texas, we are very dependent upon NAFTA. And the bottom line is, Kevin, for every one job that there may be associated with producing either, for example, aluminum or steel, there are probably a dozen, if not 20 jobs that fabricate that steel. I mean, I've heard from two different steel firms in the 5th District of Texas, one that fabricates it into shelving, others into metal buildings, and they're both very concerned about the pricing of their product now. And also what, unfortunately, the administration has done is they have thrown a huge wet blanket of uncertainty on an economy that otherwise they were responsible for making red hot. I mean, the administration has brought us 3% plus economic growth, and if the administration isn't careful, they're going to take it away.
It's not just the policy that's coming under question, it's also the mechanism in which President Trump is using to do this. Section 232, citing national security concerns, has been how he has really proposed doing this. Do you agree with the use of Section 232?
I don't see it at all. Yeah. Again, the Honda Accord is not a threat to U.S. security. And what I don't also understand is if we're imposing tariffs on the EU, well, if you look at the membership of the EU and you look at the membership of NATO, they're almost identical. So on the one hand, there's a group of countries that we claim are our closest military allies, but then we say, no, we can't count on you for steel and aluminum. And if you look at the stats, the Pentagon takes maybe 3 to 5% of domestic steel and aluminum, for our defense needs. You simply cannot make the case. 232 has never been used in this way. I do not think it is right. I think the administration, again, is on a very, very bad course that, again, I think is going to harm our economy. And unfortunately, there are those in the White House who believe that trade is fundamentally a zero-sum game. Well, it's not. Both parties benefit, and our strongest national defense is provided by a strong national economy, and the administration is poised to hurt it.
Earlier this week, Senate Banking Committee Chairman Mike Crapo at the White House with President Trump raising the issue of CFIUS reform, and that, of course, has direct impacts to ZTE. Do you agree with that? Does your committee have any plans to take up a similar amendment to what the Banking Committee has done?
Well, we've already done that, Kevin.
Yeah.
So we have already marked up a bill in our committee, a different version of CFIUS. It passed out of committee unanimously.
But does this address ZTE? Do you have concerns about ZTE?
Well, I do have concerns. So that is not directly addressed. Two different matters here. And so on the House side, that concern would have to be addressed most likely in the House and Ways and Means Committee. But our House Financial Services Committee does have jurisdiction over CFIUS. We've passed a bill. They've passed a bill out of committee. I don't know exactly when we'll go to the floor, but I would expect that this will be resolved. But again, unfortunately, the administration's actions put somewhat of a damper, I think, on the progress of this as we try to sort out if this is how they use 232, exactly how would they use new CFIUS?
You know, that's a great point. And I want to wrap this up by asking you this, because I've covered you for quite some time, and by no means are you someone who has, you've been criticized, in fact, for positions on the Export-Import Bank by the business community, for example. But you're by no means someone who is always in lockstep in saying, hey, we can't just worry about other countries with trade. So put this in a broader context, Mr. Chairman, of the trade debate that we're having from your position as a conservative who has argued for keeping America's interest in trade negotiations. Put this in context with me.
Well, number one, I came to Congress because I believe fervently in the free enterprise system. I'm not sure if there's any country that is sustained over 200 years of average 3% plus economic growth. It's part of our American birthright. And part of that is our commitment and dedication to free trade. Ultimately, it ought to be about who we are as a people. Listen, if a school teacher in Mesquite, Texas wants to buy a sweater made in Peru as opposed to Peoria, Illinois, that ought to be their right. And it also increases their disposable income when they get to do it. Again, protectionism hasn't worked. We can go back to the times of Adam Smith and David Ricardo. We know it does not work. And so, again, as the administration tries to help perhaps some in the Rust Belt, for every one person they may help there, they're going to hurt 20 others in Florida and Texas and in California and in other states. And at the end of the day, they're hurting consumers as well. I'm just dumbfounded when I pick up my newspaper to read that the administration is trying to negotiate higher wages for Mexican auto workers so that U.S. consumers have to pay more for cars. It's just surreal to me, and I just hope that cooler heads will prevail. I would urge the president, again, to be very, very cautious in this area. He's going to wipe out economic growth, and 3% plus economic growth is an American birthright. It is our destiny. And if you look at the data, all the job increases, all the disposable income increases, poverty reduction, the vast majority, 80 to 90% of that takes place in 3% plus growth years. Right. And that's what we have to be dedicated to. A global trade war will wipe it all out.